Welcome to the first webinar of 2023. It's going to be about the bad bishop. It's a very specific topic actually, bad bishop. So basically a bishop is considered to be a bad bishop in most cases if it is blocked by its own pawns. In some cases, it is restricted by opponent's pawns as well, but more often than not, it is its own pawns which make the bishop bad. So I like to call sometimes those bishops a glorified pawn. So because it has so limited space to go and such limited activity that you can't do much with it. But today's webinar, so all of you would know about the bad bishop and stuff like that. But today's webinar is not going to be about how to take advantage of the bad bishop. Because that's something, if the bishop remains bad, then in general, I don't want to go into the depth of. So it's another topic how to make that bishop bad. So it's like, sometimes we can restrict the pieces to do that, but that's the talk for another day. Today the major focus will be on if you have a bad bishop, then what can you do with it? So I have some very instructive games. One by Petrosian, one by Anand. And such games where if there is a bad bishop, then what can you do with it? So that's the thing. Now, so the first example which I want to show you is from the game of Botvinnik. So so sometimes what happens is that the definition of the bad bishop, which I said, right, restricted by our own pawn chain or restricted by our own pawns. Sometimes it can be quite limited and can change in the position. So let's look at this. Let's start with this instructive game of Botvinnik. Which I'll discuss too, and then we'll take the topic further. I think after that I will discuss the game of Petrosian, and then towards the end we'll keep the game of Anand. I think one of the best, if not the best game I have seen so far of how to make use of bad bishop to our advantage. So let me set up the board with the Botvinnik game. So this is the position. Botvinnik was white in this position. He was playing against Khan. So Sicilian Khan is named after black. So now let's see. So in this position, we can say that the bishop on d3 is bad or restricted in some manner because the pawn on c4 is blocking it, the pawn on f5 is blocking it. So we need to see what Botvinnik did about that. So now some of you might think that all right, the bishop is bad. Someone even typed it in the chat that if the bishop is bad, we should try to trade it off. Yeah, perfectly viable option. You can trade it. So some of your options would be okay. Let's put the bishop on e4. So it gets maybe some activity, and if our opponent takes it, then okay, the bad bishop is gone. So be done. Not a bad choice actually. But what Botvinnik did not want to get rid of that bishop. Botvinnik wanted to activate that bishop because he took advantage of the fact that the pawn is still on e3 and not e4. If the pawn was on e4, then this bishop would be truly bad. But as long as the pawn is on e3, there is this potential diagonal on which Botvinnik can put his bishop and then take advantage of it. So he played knight e4. So he did not want that bishop exchanged. He wanted this knight to be exchanged so that the bishop can come to e4 and then some activity can be created. So of course the threat is knight takes f6, and after g takes f6, the pawn structure of black would be bad. So black played queen d8 in this position. So now Botvinnik went for the exchange, and he got the bishop on e4. Now the bishop is doing something, but then you can say that all right, if black played rook b8, so what exactly is this bishop doing on this diagonal? It's not like there are any targets of attack, but that was not the goal of Botvinnik. So he played bishop d5 here. Sorry, he played rook a d1 first, He prepared for it and then he played bishop d5, something like this. And then he put his bishop on d5. Now, if we look at this position, I want to make a few more moves. b5. So I want to make a point. C takes b5, rook takes b5, c4, rook b6, rook b1, rook d8, rook takes b6, a takes b6, e4. So basically, what happened in this position? If we compare, so if the bishop was on d3 in this position instead of d5, then I would say black is clearly better in this position. But since the bishop is on d5 and not d3, then I think it is white who is better, because from conventional, very limited definition, okay, if the bishop is restricted by the pawns, then it would be a bad bishop. So much. If the bishop is out of the pawn chain, because if it would be on d3, then it would be inside of the pawn chain. So then the activity would be restricted by the pawn chain. So what you want to do is, just because, and another thing which mm, most of you would know is that you don't want to put more pawns on the light squares if you have the light square bishop, because they can get weakened. But the thing is that if we go ahead, this is somewhat, it's like breaking, we are actively breaking the principles. But why we are doing that? Why Botvinnik is breaking these principles? Because he recognized that there is a good bishop. What's a good bishop? A good bishop would be controlling important diagonals. The pawns would be on the opposite color of the squares. So that is a good bishop. What is a bad bishop? Bad bishop is something which would be restricted by its pawns and it would not have any activity. And then there is third type of bishop, which is the active bishop. So it's neither a good bishop nor bad bishop, but it is active. So for example, we can define this bishop as an active bishop, because despite the pawns, these three pawns being on the light squares and your bishop being of light square, this is still an active bishop, because it is number one in the center, number two on the outpost square, and number three, it is eyeing the king side of black, and somewhere it is playing a bit of a role of restricting black's pieces on the queen side. So this is how we'll try to analyze today's. Of course, the topic is going to be a bit advanced. So, but it's always good to know when can we break some principles, or like, and gain the advantage. So as you can see, what Botvinnik did, Botvinnik recognized in this position that he has the potentially bad bishop. But what he wanted to do before he defines his pawn chain by playing e4, he wanted to get the bishop out of the pawn chain, make it active, and then play e4. So what it did, he did all this. He exchanged the knight, then he developed his pieces, then he got the bishop to d5, and then eventually he got the pawn to e4. And now that bishop on d5, since it is very active, and by the way, there is only one open file, and because the bishop is on d5, the black's rook can't go to d4 and start attacking the weaknesses because of that bishop. And now, so what we can do in this position is, now the question which happens is, next is what? Okay, we got the active bishop. What? How to make use of it? So black doesn't have any active plan. So black played bishop c8 in this position. So now Botvinnik, see, the bishop is good. So it's time to bring more pieces in. Queen a4. Queen is eyeing on the queen side. Bishop d7. Queen a7. Time to target the weak b6 pawn. Bishop e8. Why? Because he wanted to bring the rook to d6 to defend this pawn. So rook b1, rook d6. Now, there is a problem. So you can't attack the pawn further, and black already has two defenders. So now the time is to open the position further. And what the most common way to open the position is through the pawn break. So it's time to play a4. King h7, then a5. Now what happens because of that is b takes a5, queen takes a5, b6 weakness is not there, c5 weakness is there, and because black's entire attention was in defending this weakness, now the problem is that weakness is not there anymore, and another weakness is created, but he doesn't have resources to defend. He doesn't. So Botvinnik is threatening to play queen takes c5, and black has three. Of course, I mean we cannot count this piece in because it's a light square bishop, but queen and rook are there, but they simply can't defend the c pawn. So, and Because the bishop is on d5, there is no rook d4, rook d3, sometimes even queen g5 and rook d2 ideas can come. So the bishop is playing a fantastic restricting role as well. And then white won the c5 pawn soon, and then he went on to win the game. It was quite instructive how Botvinnik managed to get the bishop out of the pawn chain, get it active on d5, restrict black's pieces, and then attack the weaknesses. That's that's the key. Now let's. So this was about you should not if some of your pawns are on because if because of some of your pawns your bishop is restricted, then what you can do is you can try to find out if there is an open potentially open diagonal through which you can activate the bishop, and that is something what we needed. Now I have a similar example. Let's see if you can so if you apply this, then it will not be too difficult. So I'll take the quiz for this. So you can, and I'll give you about 3 minutes. And we will go ahead. So the quiz is this one. So I will, let me give you 3 minutes for this. So please think carefully. This is black to play and what to do in this position. This is the game of Jan Timman. All right, so most of you found the correct idea. That's good. So similar thing with like we saw in the Botvinnik game. The bishop is quite restricted on these two diagonal because of these two pawns. But what you want to do is you want to find an open diagonal for the bishop. And that's what Timman did. He played bishop f8. This is an open diagonal through which he can create some counterplay. And this rook is an important defender because it is defending the c2 pawn. So if you can remove that, then the queen side will become extremely deep. So in the game, knight c1 was played, bishop h6, then knight d3 was played, then just queen c3. So rook was being attacked, and then rook here, and bishop d2. Bishop takes e1 is the threat, queen c2 check is a threat, and white resign. So this the piece which was the worst placed piece in the position. It's not doing anything at all. It can only go to this one square, and actually that became the reason, just and foremost, why why white had to why white had to resign. It became the most active piece. After when queen h5? Okay, after bishop f8, queen h5. So I think then I can play queen e3 and then I can play bishop h6 if I want. Maybe queen f2 could also be possible. Maybe queen e3, but queen e3, bishop h6 seems a bit better. But he should. So I'm not saying that white played the best chess. I think he should have tried something else. But still, bishop f8 is something what black should do. Bishop h6, and it's not that great. Right now, coming to so queen h5. Okay, so if you want to analyze queen h5 a bit further, I think queen h5 will simply play queen e3, and then I think stopping bishop h6 is, you can't stop bishop h6 because the rook is being attacked. So I think that would give black more chances. Queen e3, rook d3. All right, let's see. Queen e3, rook d3. I think I can play queen e4 in this position. So now this is pinned. So my plan is to play rook c8 and then target this pawn. So at least because of that bishop, certain weaknesses have been created. So I think I can try to take advantage of it. So if something like queen takes h7, then rook c8. You can defend it by playing rook c1. but I think I have this rook takes c2, which should win the game. Rook takes c2, rook takes c2, queen d3, maybe queen f7, but king b8, and now you cannot save this rook. So, but yeah, queen h5 seems more tenacious than what white played. Now, these two examples which we saw, that was about the bishop was bad, but there was an open diagonal, so which he took advantage of, and he went on to win the game. So now, sometimes now, so the game which we will see is, so here Petrosian was black. In fact, Petrosian was the one who was facing. I mean, his opponent was Leonid Stein. So he was not a world champion, but in 1960s, no, he was a very strong player. So we'll see how he beat Petrosian. Very instructive game. So let's um, let's go for this. Let me once again give you about 3 minutes for this. I want to hear your thoughts on what to do about it, and then we'll slowly go ahead. So this is white to play. Please think carefully what to do. How did Stein outplayed um, Petrosian? All right. So let's look at what so majority of you played in this position. Queen g5. So which is to exchange the queens and then activate the bishop through this diagonal. It's not a bad move, but the thing in this position is that your opponent's king is in the center, and even if he castles on the king side, the king is still, because of the open h file, the king is going to remain weak. We can say the same thing for white, that okay, because the h file is open, white's king is weak. But the thing is that there is a rook there. Or what else actually? The queen cannot reach here, the queen cannot go to h4, to g5, to f6, knight cannot go to f4. Sorry, knight cannot go to f4, h4. Like that lone rook is not going to be able to do anything. So then in that case, what you need to do is you need to create another diagonal to activate the bishop. And that happens through a pawn sacrifice, that is a4. You want to get the bishop on this diagonal, and what you can do is now your bishop, because another point in this position is that you have double bishop advantage, and your opponent does not have the dark square bishop. So if you can if your dark square bishop gets activated, then there is no contest, no piece can stop it, and that will give you a bigger advantage. Now let's see. A4, bishop takes a4, then rook a1, and b5, and bishop a3, queen d7. And now black cannot castle, so white doesn't have to worry about it. White can play bishop d6 in this position. So, but that is the move which you can always play. So, because sometimes what can happen in these type of positions, if you play bishop d6, is rook b6 can be played, and then there can be this rook takes d6 type of ideas. So, and then black can sacrifice an exchange to get rid of the most active piece of white. So, question is just waiting here. Let's keep the bishop on it. It's like, because that's the benefit of having the bishop. It's a long range piece. It's not like if you want to control this diagonal, you will control the same amount of squares from a3, from b4, c5, or d6. So you don't need to go there compared to the knight. So because it's a short range piece, you just keep it on e3. Now it's time to bring more pieces. Rook f2. Bring another rook, because if you look at it in this position, what is the rook on a1 doing? Even if the bishop is not there, it's just staring at the a4 bishop, which is defended by the pawn. So now it's time to strike on the king side. Rook f2, rook b7, then rook af1. And then queen d8 was played. Now we played queen d1. So the goal is to play something like maybe bishop h5 and then queen g4 and then increase the pressure further. By the way, here you can have some other plan as well. That's fine. So here he played rook h6 just to defend this. So now bishop c1 attacking it. So Stein had a strong plan here. Bishop takes e6, and here is where Botvinnik resigned, because f takes e6 and queen g4. If the knight moves, then rook f8 check, the queen goes, and there is no way to defend the knight because rook h6, then bishop takes h6. So that's the problem. And why did this all happen? Everything happened because that bishop was playing a very important role in restricting black spaces. Otherwise, this would not have been possible. So what we did is the bishop is bad because of the pawns. But if the pawn is but if we get rid of the pawn, then we can activate the bishop through this diagonal, and that's what Stein did. And then he won the game thanks to that bishop. So far, what we have seen is we already had the bad bishop. So in the Botvinnik game, there was that open diagonal which we made use of. In the Timman example, there was that bishop f8, bishop h6, open diagonal. In the Stein Petrosian game, there wasn't an open diagonal initially. So we sacrificed a pawn to create an an active diagonal for our bishop. So the common theme between these, what we saw so far, was that we had a bad bishop initially, but we somehow managed to activate it through before like bringing in front of the pawn chain like the Botvinnik game, or getting it on the open diagonal like in the Timman game, or like the Stein Petrosian game, sacrificing the pawn to get it on the open diagonal. So but now the game which I'm going to show you, the game between Ivanchuk and Anand, that game actually so Anand did not activate that bad bishop, and then he won the game thanks to that bad bishop. So that's a very surprising thing, that how can you not activate that bad bishop and win the game because of it. So that's the beauty of the game. So that's something, yes, that will be quite an interesting game. And now let's go for it. So let me put up the position. Here we go, and let me flip the board. Okay, flip the board. So here Ivanchuk was white, and Anand was black. So this happened from the Sicilian, the usual Sicilian. So here Ivanchuk played knight d5. So his goal is, of course, the queen is being attacked. So his goal was that once the queens get exchanged, then he will play knight takes f6, bishop takes f6, rook takes d2, and the position is about equal actually. So of course there is still a lot of play left, but the position is about equal. That's what Ivanchuk was thinking. So Anand played queen takes d2. So Ivanchuk played the intermediate move, knight takes f6 is a check, by the way. That's very important. It's a check. So you can take the queen later on. Now here is where Anand played the move g takes f6. Extremely surprising. So the question is why? Why would you play g takes f6? Not for the double pawns, no. Why would you make your bishop bad at this position? So in this, so slowly that will unravel. Like why did he play g takes f6 to make? Already the bishop was not doing that great. Even in this position, the bishop is not doing that great because it is defending this backward pawn. So why is he playing g takes f6 to make the bishop, which was bad, to make it even further back, like even on this diagonal? Because let's say there is a possibility that if he plays king e7, then maybe in future somehow, of course, white will play h4. But in future, there is always a possibility of him exchanging this bad bishop. So why is he doing that? So yeah, that we will slowly see. So rook takes d2. So rook takes d2 was played in this position. So now his plan starts. So there was a specific reason why he did that. So and then slowly, it's not because of one move. The plan which he made is absolutely fantastic. So let me give you a quiz. So this will be for about 3 minutes. Let's see if you can try to find what Anand was trying to do initially, because and then we'll see further. There's more to it in this position, but let's first initially do that. Please don't rush. Think carefully. You have 3 minutes. Don't. Let's go ahead. So majority of you played the correct idea. So so in this position, you should try to strike on the king side because that's where white's weaknesses are. That bishop on f1 is not developed. That rook on h1 is undefended. So you can try to take advantage of it. So h5 was the move. Now, say in this position, if h takes g takes h5 is played and rook takes h5, and now what you can do is you can play f5, and now those double pawns won't be there, and then you can try to do something about that pawn majority. So that's why Ivanchul did not play that. He wanted that pawn on d4, so f5 won't be played, and that bishop won't become active. So h3 is not possible in this position because h takes z4, h takes z4, and then there is bishop takes c4. Now, there is another move, bishop e2. That is also not possible in this position because okay, I think you can once again let's try to do some solving here. I don't want to give too much time. I'll give 2 minutes for this. So like if bishop e2, then how can you increase the pressure on your opponent's king? Okay, once again, most of you played the correct idea. So you should exchange, and then now you need to make use of the semi-open file and play rook h3 to put pressure on this bishop. Because let's say once the bishop goes to f2, then you can play king d7. Because the rook on b8 is not doing anything. All the action is on the king side. It's time to shift the rook to either h8 to put pressure here, or to bring the rook to g8 to put pressure here. So now the question in this position is, why exactly did Anand play g takes f6? See, one of the ideas of Anand of playing g takes f6 was that when he plays h5 and then exchanges his pawn, so he can also make use of the g file. So, and what is the connection of the bad bishop with this whole game? So, as we will see in the game as well, and as we are seeing in this, so let me just show you through this example. Let's look at the pieces. So in this position, bishop on e6 is attacking this pawn. Rook on h3 is restricting this rook and attacking this pawn. The rook on b8 is ready to come to h8. And the king is, of course, later as the pieces will get exchanged, it will get active. So what this bad bishop is doing, this is the weakness, backward pawn. This is the weakness potentially. So the bishop is holding on to the black's weakness so that the other pieces which are there can play their role without having to worry about opponent's potential counterplay. So why this rook? So rook doesn't have to worry about this pawn. So for example, let's imagine the bishop is not here. So your opponent could play rook hd1 attacking this pawn. So now you will have to decide whether to bring the rook here to put pressure on this pawn or whether to bring the rook here to defend this pawn. Once again, we are ignoring the fact that this is being attacked, just talking more in a positional terms. So what happens is that the weaknesses which you have in this position, if this bad bishop is not there, then there won't be any piece to defend it. So the other pieces which could play potentially more active role in attacking your opponent's weaknesses, this weakness, maybe this weakness, maybe this weakness, maybe some other weakness. So they wouldn't be able to do it because some of the pieces, or at least one piece, would be busy defending black's own weaknesses. But what that bad bishop has done right now, it is actually defending all those black's potential weaknesses which white can take advantage of. So these three pieces, they can freely move around and attacks white's weaknesses. So it is the playing the role of role of an enabler. So one thing which you should remember is that if other pieces are exchanged, then the bad bishop won't be able to do much on its own. So, but since other pieces are active, so that's what Anand recognized, that potentially he has there is a lot of activity which can be which can be done by other pieces. So let's keep the piece there, and then the bishop on e7, and then let the other pieces freely attack white's weaknesses. So that's the role of the bishop, stabilizing black's position, stabilizing black's weaknesses, so other pieces can freely attack opponent's weaknesses. Now, let's go back. So h5 was played. So Ivanchuk played rook b1 in this position. Then h takes g4 was played. F takes g4 was played. And now another quiz. So let's see. So in this, so I'll give you 3 minutes for this one. Let's see what you do. Hmm. So most of you played the move rook h4 because rook cannot go to h3. So I thought let's go to rook h4. So but the problem what will happen is white will play h3 and defend this pawn. And some of you might have thought, okay, that's fine. I'll play bishop c4, exchange this bishop, and then start attacking this pawn. But the problem with this approach is white can play the same way with which Anand did. He can play bishop g2. Now this is his bad bishop, but that bad bishop is playing an important role in holding the king side of white. So because now you know it to attack this pawn with this bishop, and unless you do that, you won't be able to break the king side of black of white. So yeah, the position would be about balanced. So you don't want that. You don't want to give that bad bishop, give a choice to white to have that bad bishop, because that bad bishop, especially if h3 is controlling g4 and h3 is defended by g2, so you can't do much with that. So only one of you found the correct idea actually. That is to play bishop c4 directly. Extremely strange move. I mean, having a bad bishop is another thing, but actively exchanging your active bishop, it's like this bishop is doing so much. It looks like it's such an active piece. Why would you even consider exchanging it? But the important thing here is that the rook should doesn't want to go to h4. The rook wants to go to h3, so that there is no connection between this g4 pawn and h2 pawn. So it will be easier to attack the king side. So that's what it did. Now the question is, can't he play bishop g2? He can't, because there is rook takes h2, and that in fact wins a pawn for black. So the pawn is not on h3. So we are taking advantage of the fact that bishop g2 is not possible, and that's what Anand did. Exchanging is good. Bishop b3, bishop takes f1, rook takes f1. So there was so now we played, of course, the plan was rook h3, get the rook to h3. So now he cannot play h3. g4 is weak, h2 is also weak. So rook e2 was played in this position. Time to bring the rook in the game. King d7 was played. g5 was played in the position. Now you want to realize that the position is getting really bad. Rook g8 and this will be attacked. Rook h8 and this will be attacked. And if he keeps the position like this, then something is going to fall sooner or later. So he wanted to change the position. Now he played g5. See how much Anand did in these last 8 or 9 moves, that it is white who is actually playing g5 to get rid of this pawn, to make that bishop active. So I mean, at least comparatively active than it is now. It is because other pieces are so much active because of the bad bishop defending these weaknesses that Ivanchuk has to do this. So king e6 was played. Then g takes f6. Bishop takes f6. Bishop b2. So now let's so okay, let me give you one more quiz in this. I want to say something, but let me try to let's give you an opportunity to solve this. This is quite instructive. Let's see how you handle this. We will get 3 minutes for this, yeah, or 3.5. Okay, let me give you 3.5 for this one. Slightly difficult. Think carefully, please, what to do. It's not that easy, but it will be fun solving. How should Anand make progress now? Okay, so most of you played the idea of rook bh8. So that's not a bad move, but what will happen here is I'll play rook EF2, attacking your bishop. And now you can't play this idea of this, and then take it because it's a check. So it's not that great idea. You can play bishop E7 in this position. But once again, if I exchange and then this, then the position will remain about equal because now white has also got his rook active. So that's not something what you want to do. You want to maintain the pressure. This is a weakness. You don't want to take this pawn and give up this pawn of yours. It is an important pawn. We will see. It doesn't look like it right now, but we'll see how, in fact, Anand won because of that. So this pawn, you should keep that as a weakness. You don't want that pawn exchange with any pawns of yours. So here the move which was played by Anand was absolutely brilliant. So it's like that bishop decided in the game that it doesn't want to be active. So Anand went bishop e7 in this position. Then Ivanchuk played bishop e1 so that he can go bishop g3 to defend this, and Anand played f6. So this is it's like it's very surprising that the bishop just wants to remain bad. It's like no activity for me in this game. I had enough of activity. So, but of course there is a plan which Anand had put in place. So we'll see what was that plan. But it's just very funny because first he made that bishop bad, then Ivanchuk played d5, and he made that bishop active, and then the bishop was like, no, let's get back to where we were. So, oh, sorry, bishop e7 and bishop e1, f6. So now the question is, why exactly did he do this? It was not like, something for fun he did that. They are not playing some friendly blitz game that, okay, let's just do it for the sake of it. No, this is a serious game. So there's a reason. So now the reason in this position was, now here it will become clear. I think you can try to attempt this once. I'll just give you 2 minutes for this, not too much. So why did he do bishop e7 and f6 again? There was a method in the madness game. So, okay, 2 minutes. What to do? All right, let's go ahead. So good number of you found the correct idea. The idea was to play d5. So now the question is that how exactly d5 is connected with bishop e7 f6. So basically the plan is, I'll just briefly explain why he played d5. So the plan in this position is to create connected pass pawns, and then he will come. So if he can push it to f5, then e4 or even f5, f4, then he can put pressure. So this was that's why he played bishop e7 and f6 to get the connected pass on. He can't play f5 because the rook is already on f1, so that's why he's going for d5. So couldn't he play it earlier? No, he couldn't play it earlier because right now the problem is if he plays d5, then after e takes d5, king takes d5, there is rook takes f6. So he will lose the bishop. So that's why he can't play d5. Then the question is, maybe after this couldn't he have done it? After this also he can't do it because there is a d5, ed5, king takes d5, then rook takes f7 is coming. So he can't do that. So each and every move, you remember that he did not do. It seemed like some of his moves were very strange. Yes, so extreme. I mean, the whole game was strange, but there was a particular idea behind each move on why he played. He was not like let's just do that just like this because this looks good, and no, each and every move had a particular idea, and he was getting closer to achieving his goal. That was now finally after all this, he got d5, and now he has these connected pass pawns, which will help him in winning the game. So the game after this also the game went on, but that's not the most important thing for us because that is more to do with technique. But I mean, the main goal of the position was to show you how this position arose, how black got such a position with connected pass pawns, with such an active king, with such active pieces, thanks to that one piece, which is this extremely bad bishop. Anand did not even try to activate the bishop. Not in that like Botvinnik game we saw, Timman game we saw, Stein game we saw. Eventually the bishop got active. Not in this game. Because the objective of that bishop was to remain bad, but defend the weaknesses of black so that other pieces can play and attacks opponent's weaknesses. So that's something which from beginning to the end happened, and then slowly Anand improved his position. Those doubled pawns became undoubled, and then eventually he was able to exchange another set of pawns and then get the connected pass pawns, and then he went on to win the game. And this game was, it was not like there are some games or there are sometimes some sacrifices which looks good, which looks flashy, but when we analyze it in a bit more depth, then they look good, but they are not objectively they are not good. But this is not that game. The ideas which Anand played, yes, they look strange at some point, but if you analyze them, then you will see that they were not bad ideas. They were, even objectively speaking, they were one of the best ideas which he played throughout the game. He broke positional principles, yes, time and again, but still there was very specific and very logical reason to do so, and then he demonstrated it to us throughout the game. So this is what I wanted to show you. So earlier we saw how the bad bishop was there, and we can use different types of methods to activate it, and sometimes how that bad bishop can play and can remain the bad bishop and help us in um, winning the game. All right, so if someone has any questions, you can type it in the chat. Anything, and I can try to address that. Seems like no questions. So thanks everyone for joining, and I'll see you later. Bye.